I've been trying to do that for 20 years.
Really?
If you can succeed, I'll buy you
My
dinner.
sister says.
Well, I suspect it's close enough to 6:30 and everybody is here and settled in. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad everybody could come. But please, I don't need to tell you about the phones. Please rise for the invocation and pledge. Invocation this evening by Director Ann Rice.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Please give us your strength and wisdom this evening. As we begin preparation to create a new strategic business plan for the district, let each board and staff member step back and look at the big picture. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Flag is over there. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Georgiana.
Here?
Vice President Ben Rice.
Here.
President Dan Whitler.
Here.
Director Bob Laveau.
Here.
Director Doug Miller.
Here.
Item number 2, approval of consent calendar. Anybody have any comments, changes, questions?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 3, public participation. Why are we getting a wow out of the system?
Yeah, these are turned up quite a bit. Is it?
Yeah.
The volumes on the mics. They seem to
Be a little turned up. We had CPR training in here this week. I don't know if someone bumped the volume.
They couldn't hear Recessa Anderson.
Yeah. I guess we can all just slide back a little ways. Go ahead and go up, even though it's resounding in here, echo chamber.
Very good. Yes, thank you. And good evening, board and management. This is our current ballot. Some of you already have yours. Some of you probably already checked them off. But many of the questions that I have received is, why is my name not on here?
What's the matter?
Because for the most part, I tell people I would rather be an advocate for you, the public, as opposed to being part of the problem. And most of our elected officials now are part of the problem. Frankly, I think the PID board's a little bit different, but we still have issues with the school board, we still have issues with Parks and Recs, we still have issues with council, and some of the things here. No, I'm not running for public office. I would rather be the public's representative, and I am on occasion here. But I want to pass on every once in a while, some of the good stuff, because there is some. Here's a comment. Brilliant. Wish we had thought of that. And that's in reference to what we plan on doing in the demonstration garden, building a wall that represents what Firewise landscaping is like. Great example of agencies working together. Same thing. When you think about all the different opportunities for a variety of different nonprofits, agencies, and other public entity groups, how you get together and do things that are good for the community that you're in. It's part of the Love Paradise to make a difference day, what PID is doing up here, what the Park and Rec is doing, what the Garden Club is doing, and on and on and on. Every time there's one of these overlaps and all of these groups get together to do something that's good for our community, we need to give ourselves some praise and some recognition for that. I'm not sure where that goes, but I'm here to tell you that it is part of one of the pluses that exists here because of the donation of this property and the facility that we're going to have that will be educational and will help people see this is how we stop a fire in our community. When we know how to educate people and say, look at this, see this, don't do this, do this. That's one of those big kinds of pluses. And frankly, I think it's pretty impressive that we're doing this, and I love passing on the feedback that we're getting from that. I also want to pass on that one of the things that is going on that really represents the difference between what we have here and what we have in some other places. This is not the only place where I go where there's a public venue. Nobody here ever gets arrested. You ever see that happen in Chico? It does. Why is that? There are there's certain elements of the public that show up that just want to be disruptive, or they want to be so counterproductive. It's very hard to emphasize the good that does go on. And for most public agencies, there is good that goes on. And unfortunately, most of the publicity that we're getting, what's in our press, what's on the TV news, etc., is negative stuff. It gets a big boost. And yet, that's unfortunate. That's only a small part of what actually goes on that's positive. And frankly, I'm one of the ones that wants to help in other groups say, guess what? There's a lot of positive here. There's a lot of positive there. There's a lot of positive there. And help people understand it. I wish there was more people in management and on boards that were doing the same thing that some of us in the public are doing. I was at another public event today with the Fire Safe Council up at the Pine Ridge Elementary School in Magalia. And frankly, what we've done there with volunteers, CCC and the Sheriff's Work Party, to get a fire-safe environment around that school, because it is on the list as an evac center for assembly, to make sure that if you had to get there, you could without fire surrounding you. If you were there, you could be safe without fire surrounding you. And to see what volunteers have done and how we promote that. Unfortunately, there were 3 people from the public amongst all of us who were part of the group that were there. We need to figure out how all of us can get the word out to say, there is a lot of good going on. Please let us help you understand what the good is, so that what you're doing with your own property and with your helping your neighbors to understand how we can be a better, happier, and healthier and safer community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ward.
Well, Ward, I think we all know that if you are probably one of the most active people in this community, and you are an agent everywhere, and we are very grateful for that. And gosh, let me sit back a little farther. And also, I personally am very blessed to have you among the fairly good-sized group of people that I can use as a sounding board all the time. And I appreciate your input. So, anyway.
Thanks, Ward.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak? All right. Oh, please come forward. Because you don't speak every time. If you'd give us a name, we'd appreciate it.
George Medina. I live on Wesleyan Court up by the MEMO Reservoir. And I'm a resident there. And I noticed an informational item on the September agenda about putting in a trail from the dam to Paradise Lake. And being aware of that, I kind of surveyed my immediate neighbors, and all of us in that area that have adjoining property to the PID property, we kind of feel that it's a bad idea. And one of the things that, PID has always been a great neighbor for us. I've worked pretty closely with Greg and Jason, and I kind of keep an eye on the access road. My house is right at the access road on the east side. And they worked and helped us out with our fire eradication, and PID's been a great neighbor. But the one thing that I want to voice is the things that happen in that canyon. This morning I was woken up at 2:30 in the morning, pistol shots down at the creek. And I know that Jason and a lot of times has to take homeless people out, and I know that we've got people building fires in August, in that canyon. And it seems to me like it's a very sensitive area. And I would hate to see that area opened up to more traffic of that type. We have, because I live right next to that access road, I've got people with their headlights off on these stripped down motorcycles at 2 a.m., midnight, getting around the PID gate on my private property. So I'd hate to see that accelerated by more access down there. And I've always, since I've lived up there, I've always been told that that's a very sensitive area because it is the watershed for the city of Paradise. And I would, I guess that's what I'm saying, is that I'm afraid that if we put something in there that the traffic that comes from the other side of the hill, they call it the hood in the woods, trying to get over to across Kootling Road, would just accelerate. So, yes.
We would have enjoyed your input. I'm sorry you didn't come because there was a pretty good crowd of people that came and voiced their thoughts that evening. And for what it's worth, the predominant theme was that the more we open it up and the more it's used by people that are non-homeless people, that it's going to discourage the homeless because they use that as a hiding place. But once it's open to people that know it's an exercise trail, I can guarantee you that my wife's going to be up there hiking that thing all the time. And many other people, and many of the people that came said that they will be using it too. And so that's the thought, and I'm not sure, I think I agree with that, because where you have the well-publicized, frequently used trails, the homeless aren't there.
Yeah, I'm a little more concerned about, the ATV traffic and the stripped down motorcycles in the middle of the night. And I know for a fact, because I do live there, my wife probably won't be using that trail.
Well, now, for what it's worth, it's going to be a labeled trail, no motor vehicles. And so when it becomes an official trail that's labeled like that, then the law enforcement can take action. Whereas now there's not really any control.
Can the law enforcement take action when you have it posted, no trespassing, no loitering, no trespassing whatsoever?
Well, but it would be
because that's the way it's labeled. It would be
it would become an official trail.
Right.
Right. And so yes, they do.
Yes, they do what?
They would be able to exercise their authority.
But can they exercise their authority now?
I suspect maybe so, but because it's something that you have to wander around to try to find something official, that it's going to be...
Because it's well posted, and that doesn't stop people from shooting their 9mm at 2:30 this morning.
From the sheriff's office.
And that's I live it on a nightly basis, and I'm sorry that I'm late to the game because I just realized that it was on last month's agenda.
I might suggest, we did video that meeting, right? Just go back and listen to all these kids. They had a lot to say. And then you just form your own opinion, but they were very vocal about everything. I thought it was a good presentation.
Yeah, the community was really anxious to get this done.
But was the community that actually lives up there notified? I mean, it's the first I heard about it was yesterday, and I phoned 5 adjoining neighbors, and nobody knew about that. So maybe the counterpoint wasn't really addressed at the meeting.
Well, here you are. There's the lady that should be telling you.
You need to. I'm one of the people that was in favor of the trail, but it's basically been put off for a while and it's part of the agenda tonight, where it's going to be part of the long-range plan for the district and be looked into. So nothing has been decided. No money has been raised, although there is money available. And there's no plans to use the road that goes by your house as access to the trails.
No. I do understand that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not as concerned about that as I am concerned about, I'm a mountain biker, so I like trails.
Me too.
That's one of the things that I do utilize. But that being a sensitive area and me knowing what goes on down there, one trail going through there, I'm not sure is going to...
One of the questions that came up was, have you or your group talked to the sheriff's office and made them aware of the problem?
Usually what I do is I've got Greg and Jason a speed dial on my cell phone, and I usually contact them and let them deal with it because it's PID property, and then I let them make the decision of what they want to do. But I do report to them quite a bit. I text Jason quite a bit, and I know that he has folks on the other side, on the west side, that also do the same. So, we kind of keep a watchful eye on this side, and they keep a watchful eye on the other side. But there's just a lot of stuff that goes on down there.
May I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Our secretary took a long list of people that were attending that night that were excited about working with it. please call in sometime during the week and get your name. And if you have other neighbors that you want to make aware, get them on that list. Because Bill is right. This is not something we're starting tomorrow morning, but it is a long-range goal.
Okay.
And so we would love to have as many participants as possible involved in that. So.
I'd like, if it's going to be another agenda item, I would definitely do that and get more, because there's a lot of folks up there that have adjoining property that probably don't know nothing about this.
Right.
I mean, on our small lane, Winchester Lane, nobody knew about it, and it would affect every property owner on that.
Is it presently posted, no trespassing all around here?
Yeah, it's been posted for years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's heavily posted.
So it's you know, I mean,
It hasn't kept people from trespassing.
well, but it's a matter of somebody needs to
It's been
deter them.
posted for years.
Right.
Yeah, and honestly, the motorcycle traffic and the quad traffic has, since we've done the fire eradication behind my property, it used to be a little subdued, but now that it's opened up, now we're going all over the place.
So call in, all your friends call in, get your names on the list as we move forward. Love to have you participate.
Okay, thank you.
And what was your name again, sir?
Yes.
Your name again? I didn't get it.
Gordon Medina.
Thank you.
D-I-N-A?
Medina.
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it. We'll keep you posted.
Thank
you. Anyone else? Okay, number 4. PID Employment Retirement Program. Kevin.
So, as you know, we went through a full RFP, I believe about a year ago, and went through a full retirement plan changeover. The board had selected ICMA RC to take over the plan. The changeover took probably 3 months to get the full amount of the changeover, so I think we went live around March. And since then, ICMA has been on site a couple times for everybody opening their own accounts, and then a couple times for education. And we felt it was important for the board to have a yearly update on how the retirement plan is going, allow the board to ask questions of the retirement plan providers, and for them to give a full update on how the retirement plan is doing. So from ICMA, we have Sean Baker and Ornella Gross. Is that? Okay. Ornella has been here all day. She had presentations at 8 a.m. for all the employees, and then was I'm going to unconnect her here. And then she had scheduled times for any employees that wanted to sit down with her individually for a half-hour blocks for the full day. So she's been here all day, giving education and helping employees. So I'll turn it over to Sean Baker to give the presentation.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. I remember sitting here. It's hard to believe it's the middle of October, isn't it? It's kind of crazy, but
dark outside.
I think I was sitting here right before the holidays or around Thanksgiving last year, and I remember all your faces, and I want to say thank you very much. I was here for the presentation that Kevin had set up for all of the employees, and then I also came back. Not at the time, Corinne Cox was with me and Laura. We came back to make sure that we answered any of the questions the board might have. And again, I want to personally say thank you. We truly appreciate it. This is a phenomenal opportunity. Anytime somebody can leave you and say, hey, you know what, I never should have left you, and come back, and it's really, it's a feather in our cap, and we definitely want to make sure that we don't let you down. So when Kevin offered and wanted us to come out and present to you, we of course jumped at the opportunity. We have had one major change, however, since that night when I came for the board of directors meeting when you approved our contract. Corinne did hand in her retirement and did retire effective April 1. So after a bunch of years, or many, many years of helping people save for retirement, she is now happily practicing what she preached. As with Corinne's departure, with retirement, we brought on Ornella Gross. Ornella and I have been working together now for 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. So now Ornella is taking over. I think she's going to talk a little bit about the service through the transition and currently, and then I'll come back with a few other things to talk to you about. But if you don't mind, let me introduce you to Ornella Gross. She's our retirement plan specialist.
All right, good evening. My name is Ornella Gross. Some of you are familiar with me, with the name. Many of you not yet. So what you have in front of you, I'm actually just going to go over just this one slide or sheet right here, which has to do with kind of the aftermath of the transition from it all, and a bit of more of my role. That way there's probably, if you have any questions, let me know, but just clarity about what I'm doing with the participants and how I'm kind of helping the employees move the needle with their retirement. So one of the most important things that we stress about at ICMARC, and even in my own career, even prior to ICMARC, is getting people engaged with their retirement. We take that very seriously. It sounds simple, but it's usually kind of sometimes the hardest thing for people to take the step forward. What I really like about PID is that they provide plenty of opportunities and wanting to be consistent with it. So we have, since, as Kevin pointed out, the conversion with the assets coming in really came in March, and with Corinne and myself coming in a little bit later, we've had 44 participant meetings. Some of that also includes follow-ups in whether it's through even phone calls. Some people just have follow-ups afterwards. That's what's really nice about when people meet with me, is that even if they didn't get all their questions answered or any of that, then they can just also follow up with me as well, because sometimes people have questions later. It comes up from the conversations. So that's important. And the building part, when we talk about the transition, is it's important for us that we try to make it smooth. Normally, we want to see people build their assets, build their money, not just with the investments, but how they contribute to it, how they pay attention to it. So one of the ways that we did that is immediately we started doing a transition presentation to make it easier for people to understand how the conversion is going to happen, how the transition will occur. There isn't questions, hanging around and wondering what's going to happen. So that was really important for us to get done. After that, there were 2 additional presentations, came out to about 38 attendees. I remember, that doesn't account the one I did this morning, by the way, so or the appointments from today. That will just be added on. But the 2 additional presentations, we were just learning about something as simple as their account access. I didn't go into all the details, but you know how people trying to figure out, how do I get logged in? What do I do with my financial accounts? That actually went over really well, because we did one over at the shop, and then we did one here, and that's covered that 2 additional presentations. Not even anything about money, but just knowing how to be able to work with what you have and how to navigate. And in addition to, we like to do webinars. Those are not the seminars, like where we do live coming out here, but webinars. Some people might just need to, they can hop on the computer or hop on some type of device. We like to do webinars to get people engaged as well. And that also helps them build their retirement assets, because they learn a little bit more about what's going on. I think where that kind of comes in handy is in that section about realizing. The Engage, Build, and Realize is our pillars when it comes to how we work with employees, not just as participants while they're participating in the plan, but also when they retire. And we want to make sure that people are able to realize their retirement. Working with Nevada, it's different versus working with some of my other accounts versus working with PID. And PID has unique circumstances for the accounts that I work with, and I think that their assets are going to be really important in how they're managed. So you actually do have somebody who's taking advantage of some of our advisory services, and that's what you see there is our GPAS, Guided Pathways Advisory Service. That's a big deal, as often as most of retirement planning is on the individual. I'm one of them. I work for ICMARC, but it's in the private sector. I don't have a pension, so it's all on me. And very similar, it's also on all the employees here too. So the advisory services that we provide also help with you as providing that type of fiduciary role, because you're saying, you know what, we're giving you this option and feel free to take advantage of it. And they have that option there if they want to take it. So I would say that with the transition, it's been pretty successful. We come out, Kevin and I, we talk about quarterly. Maybe we'll switch it up with appointments, maybe with another seminar, or do both, whatever works. But I'm here to try to be as flexible as possible and to also get the participants in line with their plan. And if they need anything else above and beyond our meeting, I make sure they get in touch with those correct individuals too that work with us. Any questions for me?
Where do you live?
I actually live in Henderson, Nevada,
Wow.
near Las Vegas. Yes. So I'm familiar with, so I came in from Reno yesterday because I was covering, I've got Truckee Meadows over there, and I had City of Reno this week. And so once he told me that the board meeting was today, I just organized my schedule to make it work. So nobody knows really where I live because they realize I'm on time. So people don't realize I'm taking a plane to come or I'm driving over, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I cover northern Nevada. I've got my accounts up here in California, and then I've got southern Nevada as well.
I have a comment. I just, from an end user standpoint, I really appreciate what you did for us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Personally.
You're very
So
welcome.
the new manager was in the default plan, which is low risk but low return. So Ornella helped me move that. So thank you for that. As a manager, also, she gave a great presentation this morning and great interaction with all the employees, some nicer employees than others, but you did a great job navigating that as well. So thank you for all
Oh,
that.
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I actually, excuse me, I'm going to try to work as best as I can from the podium. I originally might be from the Midwest, but I lived on the East Coast for a lot of times. For me to stand still is incredibly difficult when you're from the East Coast for a number of years, so please bear with me. Okay, so what we've got for you, one of the biggest things out there right now, I got to tell you, in the marketplace, I'm sure it's probably an issue here, is fiduciary roles, fiduciary considerations. What does all that mean? So I'll try to dig into that a little bit. But basically, as a fiduciary, the board, Kevin, Ed, so forth, the whole idea here is what you want to do is you want to make sure you're aware of, really at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're aware of what's going on. Are we doing what's in the best interest of the irrigation district, and more importantly, are we doing what's in the best interest of our employees? I think you have it on the screens in front of you, but also then on the wall as well. One of the items that we brought up during our finals presentation that I'm actually really excited about is what we call visual analytics or data analytics. And I am more of a visual individual. I like to see things visually. I'm not necessarily, give me an Excel spreadsheet. That's not necessarily my thing. So with the visual analytics, what we do is we actually have the ability to look at the information graphically represented. Now, what I want to do is give you, my goal tonight with this is to give you an overview. If you have any questions, we can dig into it deeper. I'm fine with that. But what I want to do is give you an idea of what this program does and how we can dig into it. And then as we come back annually or semi-annually, however often you would like to get together, we have to do it at least annually from a fiduciary aspect. Then what we would do is we would start digging into it and say, you know what, we want to work on our contributions because your participation is already so high. I mean, we're basically at almost 100%. But how do we get people to contribute more, consolidate, etc.? So as we're going through it, think about something that you might like to hear more about, and then we can schedule that for a future meeting. Or if you guys want to dive into it tonight for a little while, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Nope.
But basically, at the point of the transition was roughly about $5.8 million, give or take a buck or two. As of September 30th, now this is monthly data, but as of the end of September 30th, the combined balance on the 401 and the 457 is just over $6 million. As you can see, 90% of it is in the 457 plan. And again, this just kind of gives you an idea. If we took all the pie, how is it divided up amongst our two programs? And then if you look at the number of participants, we had one person retire and they took their money out, but then somebody else came in. So we've been right at about 50 participants, both on the 457 and the 401 side. Maybe somebody leaves, maybe somebody else comes in, but I think if I remember correctly, we're right at about 50 FTEs maybe give or take a
Little
person.
less, yeah, but. Yeah.
Okay. So right now we have about 50 people participating, give or take. And then as we go to the next slide, this is really where the rubber hits the road. I can talk to you about your balance all day long. But where the rubber hits the road is how are our people invested? So, for example, if we take a look, and I've combined the two programs, and we look at the pie chart in the middle, I can tap on that and I can look and I can say, hey, look at that. In the age group of 50 to 59, literally 50% of our assets are in that near retiree, or close to retiree, almost retiree group. Truth be told, with the baby boomer push, everything like that, that is very common. I'm not going to send up a red flag and say, oh my gosh, something is different here at Paradise Irrigation District than on a national level, but it's very common to see half or more right there in that 50 to 59 group. And then if we go over to the right, what we can do is we can break it down by asset. We can break it down by asset class. So the 109 number, that's actually our 401. Well, because we were converting from FTJ, one of the things we were able to do is to make life easier. Is when we transitioned over, we mapped it. But what we did is we mapped a significant portion of those assets into the target date funds, which is the right thing to do. So I don't want to bore you guys with a bunch, but when the Department of the Treasury, they hold sway over a lot of this. What they did is they put together what they call the QDIA, which is the Qualified Default Investment Alternatives. And at the top of that list, what they say is if you're going to default somebody, there's kind of a hierarchy, and at the top of the list are those balanced funds or target date funds, where I use myself as an example. I'm 51 years old. Hopefully, good Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'll be able to retire when I'm 60. So the idea is I would then go with a fund that's closest to my retirement age. In this example, it would be 2025. So, and then what's going to happen when I'm younger, the fund would be more aggressive. But then as I get older, the fund ages with me, gradually getting more conservative. So it's kind of like set it and forget it. It's more aggressive when I'm younger, which most people realize that you need to do. Then as you start to age, the fund gradually gets more conservative. So if we take a look at the 401 plan or the 457 plan on the right-hand side, we did do some individual mapping of some of the mutual funds, but the vast majority of it did go into those asset allocation funds or target date funds. Same thing, what we do is when we start breaking it down by the age group, again, we look at the 50 to 59 group because it's probably the easiest, it's also the biggest. We can see that in that group, we can see that, again, fully 2/3 of the money in their plan for that group is also in the target date funds as well. So if you said to me, hey, are my people invested correctly? I would say overall, yes, because if you're going to use something as a guideline, the model portfolios would be it, and that's where we're seeing the vast majority of the assets. Because even if we go over on the right, it's the same thing. The blue shaded area or green, depending upon how colorblind I am at any given moment, that is going to be in the asset. Oh, thank you for laughing. Even at 7 o'clock, I still have it on a Wednesday night. But you'll notice on the right, the vast majority of it is going to be in the target date funds. You start getting to the older groups, the 60 to 69, the darker blue or the darker shading. That's the Stable Value Plus fund. If somebody says to me, I need to put my money in the safest account, it's going to go in the savings account. It's the plus fund. Again, not uncommon, especially as people get a little bit closer to retirement. A lot of data is here. It's all represented. And I could do this on any slide. One of the things that we've been doing is presentations directly at women, directed toward women. Why? Because the women face different issues in the workplace than men. You know, my wife had 2 children. You have career interruptions for whatever. But if we wanted to look at the females, I could click on female, and then that'll give you the asset allocation for the females or males, however you want to look at it. The nice thing is, again, as deep as you want to get into the numbers, we have the ability to do it, and hopefully graphically represent it for you in a way that's easily understood. This slide, it's called the tree graph. I don't know why it's maybe a fallen tree, but it is called a tree graph. And basically, if you take a look at on the top slide, that gives you an idea of the investments proportionate to the overall account balance. So not all the money is in a single fund. It's about, it's spread out amongst, 30 or 40 different funds. So you can see that the 2025 fund is the largest fund. And then as you start working your way toward the right, the smaller, then the fewer the assets in it. But then if you look at the bottom, I have to say in all my years of doing this, the bottom and the top have never matched. For the largest fund. But just because the 2025 fund on top is where it has the largest amount in assets, doesn't necessarily equate to how the money's coming into the program. I kid you not, this is the first time. Usually it's the plus fund, so I'm a little caught off guard there. But you can see that the 2025 fund, and then if you move over to the right, we're on the top. If I look at assets, probably because the 60 to 69 group is probably retired or darn close to it. The plus fund is much bigger. Down on the bottom, the plus fund you don't see until about 2/3 of the way over because there's not as much money coming into it. So again, just a graphical way of looking at the funds all in proportion to one another. This just goes by participant status. Green is active. I believe there's only a couple of people that actually have an account that have separated from service. But overall, I tell you, 50 people, 48 of them are actually actively contributing. So that's good. You're getting great participation from your employee base, which is really good. Again, this information is only 6 months old, or actually I should say only 5 months old. Next time we meet, after we get a year under our belt, it'll look a lot different and a lot better. But if you take a look, we had the initial presentations back in, they were back in March. You can see that everything spiked, both the phone, the online access, the VRU, which is where people actually can call in and just enter their account number, get information back. And then also mobile access. I don't remember if the board is actually a member, but remember, if you pull out your phone, ICMARC is a great mobile app. You can look up your account, make changes to your account. So I put the plug out there for that if you haven't signed up for it. Kevin, hopefully you already got the app downloaded. And Ed, I know you're going to do it today, right?
For sure.
There you go. Contributions as well. We've taken in, this again is through the end of September, just under $250,000. So we had about, like I said, 5.8 million rollover. We've seen about 248,000 in your in contributions. So that's great. People are in the program; they're taking advantage of it. And then there was one on the bottom. I don't know the person. I don't look up the names candidly, but they probably retired and said, you know what, I'm going to take my money and I'm going to go see Ornell and Henderson and put it at the table. At the end of the day, as a fiduciary as well, one of the things that you want to look at is what is the cash flow? The plan is good. The plan looks healthy and everything like that. But for every dollar that goes in, there is dollars that go out. We saw that somebody left. They took $136,000. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. You spend a career saving it. We want you to spend it. Sometimes people take a lump sum. Most of the time people just take monthly payments. But it is money out. Or sometimes what they'll do is they'll take it and they'll leave, Paradise Irrigation District and go to the Alameda County Water District and they'll roll their money over. So what we want to do is one of the things that we track is what is the overall cash flow. So it is $83,000 positive. Hopefully at the end of the year it'll be a lot higher, but that $136,000 lump sum withdrawal definitely made an impact on that. But you can see that the cash flow is positive. It is heading in the right direction. And a lot of times in plans, as people start to get older and start taking the money out, a lot of times we're seeing cash flows that are negative. You guys are positive by about $90,000. That's not too bad considering we're only, 5 or 6 months into it. There are loans available. They're only available on the 457 plan. What's it look like? About $95,000 in outstanding loans. Not necessarily, and as Ornell will tell you, anytime we meet with somebody and they want to consider taking a loan, if they have to take a loan, we'll give them a loan. But we all want to make sure that it shouldn't be your first avenue. It should be more of your last resort. It's not someplace if I want to buy a car or consolidated credit card debt, because you are leveraging your retirement. So again, we want to let people know it's not a checking account. That you should only go after this as a last resort. This is just that's basically the same information in an Excel spreadsheet. The plan rate of return, this will make more sense in a year from now, but the cumulative rate of return for the 401 and the 457 plan over the last 5 months is about 4.2%, which is pretty good. We've had some good markets, we've had some contributions, but 4.2% overall. You might say, hey, the market's up 10, but not everybody's in that fund that gets 10%. So you have to balance the high flyers with the low flyers. And I would probably venture to say, if I looked at your plan rate of return today, it'd be down a little bit. I mean, we've overall, October has not been the kindest, but have no fear. I mean, the market has to settle back at some point. It can't. As I was talking with Mark a little earlier, it just can't go up every day. It's got to settle back every once in a while, and it's actually very healthy in the long term. So that is what we call, again, that's visual analytics, kind of a quick 10, 15-minute overview. If you think of anything, my card is in there. Please give me a call, shoot me an email. Let us know. Ornella and I can put a plan of attack together. You say, you know what, we really want to work on the contributions, or how do we get more information out there about the advisory service, whatever the case is. Let me know what's important to you, and we'll be sure to report back to you. I'm going to walk around a little bit. I've never been accused of being a quiet individual, and hopefully, are they taping me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I am
On Facebook.
Okay. A couple of other things inside of your packets today, this evening, that I put together for you. Take a look at the left-hand side. There's two things I want to show you. Number one, this is something that is not yet available, but it will be available literally the next time we meet. I cannot tell you how many times I sit down in front of a board or a committee or a group of individuals tasked with running a plan, and they say, is my plan healthy? And I can sit there and I can show you all kinds of data analytics, which is very helpful, and it is helping you fulfill your fiduciary responsibility. But people just want a quick, easy way to know, is my plan healthy? So what we are in the process of doing, and it is almost available, is we're putting together a new service. So I'll include it. It's not going to be any additional cost. But you're going to say, Sean, is our plan healthy? And I'll say, it's green, it's yellow, it's red. If it's green, this is why it's green. If it's red, this is why it's red. So this is something that will be coming in the very near future. Like it says, it'll include benchmarking, so we'll look at other plans, maybe equivalent sizes, equivalent demographics. And then we'll come back to you and we'll say, yes, your plan is healthy, or your plan is not healthy, or your plan is fine. Here's what we might want to consider doing. I don't have a lot of information on it, but just wanted to throw this in there as a little teaser for a reason to come back. 6 months or a year from now, and I'll leave that choice up to you, but I wanted to throw that out there as a little teaser.
I got a quick question.
Oh, yes, sir.
So when you say somebody calls in, that doesn't mean the entire plan for PID, but their individual plan that they've chosen, the route that they've chosen, is that healthy? Is that what you mean when you say?
No, this would be planned. This is Paradise Irrigation.
The whole group. The whole group. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so Plan Health Monitor is for the fiduciaries of the plan. It's public information. You're more welcome to share it with whomever. But it's for you to help fulfill your fiduciary responsibility. What we have done for individuals, one of the things Ornella would have demonstrated during the account access presentations and so forth, is you log into your account and you'll see a number. And it's what we call your MI on track number. And it'll be on 5%, or it'll say 80% and 90%. And what it'll say is, okay, based upon your age and a projected retirement date of age 60, you have the ability to go ahead and customize it a lot more for you, for example, Dan. But it'll ask you a few pieces of information. And then based on that, here's what I have in my 457 plan. Here's what I have in my 401. Here's, if you put it in, here's what I'm projecting here from Social Security or from pension or whatever. And you might see the, garbage in, garbage out. So the better you put more information you put in, the more accurate. You might come back and all of a sudden sit there and enter it all and say, wow, I'm 95% on goal. And then it'll give you recommendations. What do? I can either let's say I'm at 80%. We always say you want to shoot to be around 95, 100% if you can. You know, what are the two ways you can affect it? Number one, investment. Well, you have Cornella there. You also have the Guided Pathways Advisory Services, or the amount that I'm contributing. And one of the biggest advantages we see from people who participate in it, they contribute a lot more. Because if I get a raise or cost of living, knock on wood, I can increase it by just 10 or 15 bucks. And if I'm young, I'm one of these young guys out there at 25 or 30, you put that in over a working career, it literally makes well over $100,000 a year. So the MRI track tool is for the individual. The plan health monitor is for you.
The whole club, yeah.
With your producers. And I'm sorry that I get a little long-winded. I don't know how long I have, but I always want to make sure I get the information out to you.
Your time's up already.
Oh, it's up? Okay. Also, just throw this in there. This is our seminar. This is our seminar lineup. These are a little bit longer. We can make sure that you're invited to our presentations, but I want to make sure that all of you had a copy of our seminar lineup as well. Okay, finally on the left-hand side. Again, this is in conjunction with the Plan Health Monitor. This is for you, the fiduciaries of the plan. We have put together a series, and I saw somebody had it open the page too. You'll notice this fiduciary education for plan sponsors, and you're the plan sponsor. If you go to page 2, basically what we have done is we put together a series of 12 organized modules on what are really considered the key critical areas of being a fiduciary in the plan. It has everything you'll notice from, what are fiduciary roles and considerations, and I actually brought a couple of pieces on that for you to take with you. You might want to hear a little bit more about what constitutes investment guidance or investment lineup selection. I mean, you're using the American funds, target date funds, which, by the way, are excellent funds. Now, some of that's personal commentary. I think they're excellent funds. Statistically, I think that should be. But what do we want to do to monitor, continue to monitor that, make decisions, how do we place it? Anyway, we could do something on, like I said, investment selection and monitoring. Plan leakage. Well, the good news is we're positive cash flow, a little bit earlier, 83,000 to the positive. What if 3 years from now it starts turning negative? Maybe we might want to address plan leakage. So I brought this for you to consider. I would highly recommend and would love to offer that every time we get together, pick a topic, whatever one of the 12 you want to do, and then we basically, tonight's more of a recap night. We did have a successful transition, so I do want you to be aware of that. But what we can do then is take and do an overview of the funds, kind of like the visual analytics portion, or now we do a quick service update, and then we can jump into one of these fiduciary modules. That way we're checking the box. Anybody comes and says, hey, what are you guys doing? Check out the minutes, it's there. We're going to give you a handout with you that can get put into the record as well. So this is something that we can incorporate very easily in 10 or 15 minutes. And then finally, I put in there some information on basically fiduciary roles and what is a fiduciary. And basically, a fiduciary in layman's terms is somebody that basically is in charge of administering the program, in charge of knowing what's going on with the program and monitoring the program, the investment selection, and so forth. As a fiduciary, and I see this happen all the time, when it comes to fund selection and down the road, or even tonight if you want to get into it, as you start thinking about funds or adding funds, remember, it's always easy. I want a gold fund, gold going through the roof, I want a healthcare fund, going through the roof, I want a fame fund, whatever the case might be. As a fiduciary, my biggest thing is you want to be consistent. Whatever you do, you want to make sure that you maintain consistency across the board. That's not in there. That's just 22 years of experience. And then number 2, remember that you want to make sure whatever you do is prudent for the plan. Because what they're going to do is they're going to engage it against what they call the prudent man role, what would a prudent individual do in this situation. And then that's what they're going to kind of, if you ever be audited or anything, they're going to kind of base it on like I said, the prudent man role. And then on the second page, there on the left-hand side, gives you an idea of these are what the provider does on the left-hand side. And then, so the provider's role, or excuse me, so the record keeper, third-party administrator, that would be maintaining the records and so forth, education. We are not a fiduciary of the plan. We cannot be a fiduciary of the plan. We don't work for this irrigation district, they don't work for us. So ultimately, at the end of the day, the fiduciary responsibility does fall back down squarely on your shoulders. When it comes to investment advisors, we do have, again, the Guided Pathways Advisory Services. We partner with the company, Morningstar, they're the same company, obviously, that manages the mutual fund. In that capacity, we do act as that one is a 338 investment advisor for individuals that sign up for it, because that does exercise discretionary control. So basically, I'm going to be really easy for you. A 321 investment advisor recommends, ultimately the decision falls on your shoulders. A 338 investment advisor, they'll basically just do it. So these meetings would basically, when it comes to investments, wouldn't necessarily be necessary, other than maybe for a yearly overview, because your investment manager is going to handle that for you. So again, I want to give you this just to kind of give you an idea of the different roles and responsibilities. And then on any of the modules, you want to go through the checklist. We understand who our fiduciaries of the plan. Are we following the proven process? And then just go through and check off. Are we doing this or aren't we doing this? If we're not doing it, how do we do this? We can take a few minutes to go through it if you want. I love this stuff, so believe me, I can talk about it all day. I don't know how long you guys want it. I don't know how long you'd like to sit here and talk about it.
I have a question, Sean. So you're discussing fiduciary responsibility in relation to a retirement plan, which I strongly feel like PID and the board and management certainly exercise that responsibility. Mm-hmm. That being said, what is the role of the individual when it comes to their responsibility for choosing the selections? Because ultimately this is an individual responsibility to select plans and how you invest your money. So that's the big elephant in the room, right? We're talking about ICMA.
Right.
We're talking about PID. What about the individual?
Okay, so I hope I explained it. I hope I'm explaining it. I hope I answer it the way I should answer, the way you're looking for, or the way you.
I'm not looking for anything but.
No. I'm saying I hope I answer
Theoretical
the question.
question.
Actually, I hope I'm answering the question you're actually asking. At the end of the day, it's up to the individual. The individual can do whatever they want. It's still okay. So what your responsibility, and really, because if you look at all the lawsuits out there, number one, you want to look at fees. So we went through a competitive process. The fees are very much in line, actually very economical in that standpoint. So you're offering them a plan that is very cost effective. When we looked at the investments, we went through, and in most cases, I happen to talk about the American funds, we picked best in class funds that are also not necessarily the least expensive funds, but you're getting the most value for your dollar. So if I'm going to charge you 50 basis points for a fund, which is 0.5%, versus 25 basis points, which is 0.25%, there's nothing wrong offering the 50 basis point fund. You just need to show why you're offering it, because American funds offers more of a value. You're getting a better return. So that when you're offering up funds and a fund lineup, your goal is to make sure that you follow that prudent process so that you're offering people a very good value selection of funds. But at the end of the day, it is their decision how they want to invest in those funds. I hate to keep bringing it back to you because that's really what it's about. But we have the investment monitoring selection. We talked about all that. But in addition to that you don't get in the 401k world, which is where most of these lawsuits originate, is candidly you don't get Ornella. And then I know James Collins, our certified financial planner, is going to be coming in, but you're not getting her. So if somebody comes in and says, I don't know what to do, you have the resources available to you. And then, although Ornella might say, you know what, Ed, the 2030 fund is the exact right, is the fund for you. If you say, you know what, I'm just way too risk averse, I'm going to stick all my money in the savings account, it's still your decision. I was a representative for years. One of the philosophies I live by is the only appropriate investment is the only appropriate investment is what makes an individual feel comfortable. I can tell you that you're fine in the 2030 until I'm blue in the face. But at the end of the day, if you're saving and the only thing you're going to feel comfortable is in the plus fund, that's fine. But you had Ornella, you used the website resources and everything like that. So the information was out there, but if you choose not to follow it, that is up to that's the individual's responsibility.
Well,
I'm sorry, I apologize.
I was under the impression, and I'm certainly new to all this kind of thing, but that it was our job to go out and shop for the best plan for our employees that we could find, or that we determine as a board, best competitive fees, best funds to invest in. But after that it was each individual obviously makes their own choices for their own fund, their own account, and that Ed and Kevin would be the administering it. Is that the right word?
Plan sponsor,
we
sure.
as board members have no day-to-day administration of
Correct.
of these plans or funds, or other than we're to go out and shop, provide the best bang for the buck for the PID employees.
But you want to make sure you're educated. You want to make sure that you're educated. So just saying, hey, you know what? We went through it. We looked at whatever it was, 3 or 4 different companies in the end.
Yeah.
ICMARC was the best value, whatever the criteria. Seemed to be the one that the employees were comfortable with. You went with it. But you can't, but in today's world, 10 years ago, that's how 99% of the plans out there operated, and it was fine. But in today's world, you just can't say, ICMARC, and maybe we'll revisit it in 10 years. You want to be updated, you want to make sure that you know what's going on, because, the decision did fall with you, because ultimately it was up to you to approve our contract. It is in your best interest to stay updated with what's going on.
Yeah, and I know we have annual, because we had it with the old fund, annual reports of like the health of the fund or how it's doing, all that. But we as board members, and even, I'm not sure exactly, Kevin or Ed, but we have no control when an employee chooses to come in and out of a plan. We have no control over what age group is doing what, or,
Right.
or participation. We just want to make sure it's offered as a benefit for them.
Right.
We can't make them invest in
No,
anything.
no.
That's what
You
I'm trying to say.
No, you can't make them.
But we want to offer it as a
Once they
benefit to them.
separate from service, I have to stress that, because as the employer, you actually do have. You can exercise significant control over the plan because it's a plan-sponsored program. Once they separate from service, though, you have a lot. They can do whatever they want. I mean, there's nothing in the law that prohibits them from taking their money out. But again, it's you want to make sure that the plan is relevant. And that's really what it is. At the end of the day, somebody rolled $136,000 or took $136,000 out of the program. They might have met with Ornella. They might have met with Corinne. I don't know the person's name. We just want to make sure that they have the right information available to them, because our interest is to see as many people stay in the plan. Retention is a huge focus of ours. We don't want to see plan leakage. And I was a stockbroker in a previous life. Ornella worked for Georgia pension system and so forth. I'm telling you, you get out there in the real world, these guys, these financial advisors, they are on you. They want you to roll their money over. They want to put you in higher priced products and so forth. You can't stop somebody from doing that, but you want to make sure that they're aware of what they're doing and they see the advantages. At the end of the day, I'll never forget.
An education component was a big reason, why we chose your company as well. The education component.
Right.
So that's there after separation as well.
Oh, it continues, because just because somebody separates, we don't want to lose them. I mean, we want them to stay in the program. When you look at our corporate numbers, and we see the same numbers in California as well, we have it's currently just over 96, I want to say 96.1%. I was at a meeting last week and they showed us the number. So 96% of the assets of people that are eligible to leave the program overwhelmingly choose to stay with us. Like I said, it's like 96%. The retention rates in the 401k market are 25%. Our numbers are astronomical when you think about it. And we'd like to, and that's people that can take their money and move out. So we would like to think that, the webinars, not everybody when they leave PID stays here in Paradise. They go someplace else. They still get the notices. They can still attend the webinars. They still get, they still have all the online access, the mobile access. They have access to Corinne. If they live in, Corinne just retired. I'm sorry, but if they move to Alabama and they want to meet with a certified financial planner, we'll put them in touch with our financial planning manager in Alabama. We try to, we work very hard to do that. Yes, sir.
Sean, I got a question about how do we plan for a retirement bubble? It looks like we got a bubble coming. So, in 5 to 10 years, a lot of people will be leaving. And then I assume that when we hire people behind them to fill them, they'll be contributing less. So how do we deal with that? You probably are experienced with this.
That's $1 million question. No, it's okay. So we have incredibly high participation. So you'd be amazed at just having representatives come out and sit and talk and have the ability to deal with it. And one of the things that we're really pushing is that holistic approach where you look at everything. But those advisory services, it's not that people are going to get an added return. The market's going to return what it's going to return. But the people that take advantage of those services, they do better, but they're saving more. They're putting more in, and they're doing it on a regular basis. So somebody might be going out at $300 a check, and we're replacing them at $50 a check. But you know what? In a few years, they'll be at $200 a check if they understand the value and the message continues to get out. And that's the boots on the ground. As Ornella said, she's talking with Kevin to maybe come on a quarterly basis. And then we drip all the time, drip. And with the young kids today, I say young kids, but you have to have the online resources. I kid you not. The app, the website, that just gets phenomenal usage.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again, thank you very much. It is truly a pleasure. Let me know when you want me to come back. Let me know what the next topic is, and thank you.
Before we leave this topic, anybody from the public wish to speak to it? Okay.
No, sir. Yes, thank you. Excellent presentation, and it's not the first time I've heard it. I was a public employee for several years, and when I was in Alameda County with StopWaste.org, and always appreciated when ICMA-RC sent their representative to talk to us and explain to us what our investment strategy was and how well protected we were. I appreciate very much tonight that he said 6 times that this board is the fiduciary of this plan, as was the previous board, as was the previous board, as was the previous board. Fiduciary is not a term that you can get out from under. You are the fiduciary of this plan. You're responsible for it, as was the previous board and the previous board, etc. Which brings me to the issue of what the public doesn't get to comment on, and that is the continuing suit that we've been faced with for several months now. And I know the press is aware of this, but the point is that had the employees stayed with ICMA-RC and had that continuous without the interruption from FTJ, would not they have been much further ahead? And would not there have been some plan, knowing that to be able to make up the difference one way or another, without it costing the ratepayers, us customers, the difference, to make the employees whole? There has to be some way to get this over and done with before the suit goes to court next March. It's got to happen. The second part of that is, yes, I have been asked if I would come to court and testify. And I said, yes, I would. On behalf of who? On behalf of the employees. I'm sorry, but on behalf of the employees. They got screwed. It's not your fault. It was the previous fiduciaries that made the change. That's where the blame lies. I don't know how you make the correction to that. This board But that's where the blame lies. And it has to come out that way, that somehow or another, when this is all over, well, and done with, the ratepayers have no responsibility for this bad decision. That's got to come out very, very clear. I know the press has heard it, her boss has heard about it too. Here's the thing, though. When we think about what it is that we do on behalf of our employees here, those guys up there, the ones that are in the trucks out there, these are some of the best people you could have when it comes to water companies. Some of you remember, I worked for Cal Water for 4 years as an outside consultant. I went to every one of their districts. I talked to a lot of first-line employees. And I got to tell you, the relationship, employee to employee and employee to customer here is exceptional, absolutely exceptional. These people are outstanding people. So when we get down to what is it that this board, these fiduciaries are going to do to make these employees feel like they are absolutely worth what they are worth, you're in a difficult spot. I know you are. And I know that you can't relay to me or anybody else in the public what the attorneys are saying back and forth. But I know, I read the report that goes to the judge. It's not settled. It is going to court in March. It's really sad that we get to this point. But you got to see, how do we go forward from this? How do we get to the point where we know what the board did as fiduciaries was wrong on behalf of these employees, and recognize them for how much we, odd word, love them for their performance compared to anybody else in this industry. I've seen some of them, and I know some of them. I still go to the board meetings at Cal Water in San Jose. I know they have some good employees. I know we're better. I do. I know we're better than South Feather. I know we're better than Del Oro. I know some of those people as well. I just think this board has to be very public about where it is that we're going and what it is that we're going to do, and let the people know how well this is going to be handled. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ward.
Anyone else wish to speak to this? Thank you. Anybody on the board have any more questions or anything before we go on? Okay. Staff and building reports number 5. Any questions from you all? I think I have any.
I did want to mention on the transmission and distribution section of the staff report, specifically on the leak history, I've asked Jim Ladrini and Keith O'Brien to add estimated gallons of water lost during each repair event, which it's very doable. It's very commonly done, and we're going to begin to do that. That we are doing it, and you'll see that in future reports.
Okay.
So that'll be another chart or something.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
That'd be great.
Well, since we're there, I discovered something I should have discovered years ago. On mainline leaks on page 19, the number of leaks per year report. They're only mainline leaks. They're not talking about any other leaks, evidently.
Correct.
So I think that's another report we ought to understand where the leaks are otherwise in the district.
What would be the differentiation between mainline leaks and what? Not mainline,
You
just
have all sorts of lines. I don't know.
right. What constitutes a main line?
Mainline leak and
Well,
what's
let me clarify. So all PID lines are considered mains.
even the small lines.
Yes,
going
sir.
after the
So
meter.
there's various sizes, diameters of mains, but they're all mains up until the meter. Once the meter is the point of delivery, beyond the meter is a service line by definition. So this does encompass all PID leaks.
It's a customer's responsibility.
Yes, sir.
From
Yes,
there,
sir.
yeah.
That is in fact lost water, if you will, but it is not non-revenue water, if that makes sense.
We don't have any way of measuring it anyhow.
Oh, we do measure it very carefully with meters.
Pardon?
We do measure it with the meters, so we know. But yes, this does reflect all of our leaks. Bill, to be clear.
That's why AquaHawk is so important, because if we can get more people to sign up for Aquahawk, then we can catch those customer leaks and notify them that something's going on. I got a call just a couple weeks ago, and I had left a faucet on a garden hose. It was great. I go, what? So I looked around the yard. There it was. Turned it off. Perfect. Worked perfectly. It works.
Yeah, it does.
I've gotten the alert too.
Worked once for me, too. Yeah. I do have a question on page 42. Where'd she go? She's not here. Top right up there to the right of the picture, it says unique viewers. Out of curiosity, what is a unique viewer?
That might be a person that didn't log on again from the same, so it's unique.
One time
person.
only viewers or
There's-
something? Okay.
So there's a
It's a
person.
viewer that logged in one time per month, but then we're not counting them if they log in
Yeah,
50
again.
times for that month.
Oh,
So
got
it's it's one unique person that's on.
Got it. Okay.
So unique viewers versus hits, if you will.
Okay.
Hits would be the total number of times that it was accessed. And these
Thank
are
you.
the individuals that accessed it.
Okay, A and B, staff billing. Staff reports, staff billing. Any questions on any of it?
Not for me.
I do, on page 44, I have a question. It's in B, but 2/3 of the way down, it said sealed meters in service, 312.
Yes.
I would like to, at your convenience, sometime in the next month or two or three, when you have a small schedule on a meeting, I'd like to talk about that. I'll try to mention it I'll come in and talk to you about it prior to it so that you know what my question is. Because I've had a couple of people who have sealed meters and they've asked me details about it, and I've told them to come in. I don't know, but one of their complaints was the amount that they're charged for a sealed meter. Why is it so excessive?
It's a very common question. We get it quite often. So
It just, sometime,
so you'd like to agendize that?
if you wouldn't mind.
Great.
Because I personally, when they told me how much they were paying, I was taken aback. It's extreme for something that sits there and does nothing. So, no further questions? Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this item? Okay, action please.
So I move we accept the staff and billing report.
I'll second that.
Moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. 6, Mr. District Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President and Board. It's been a very interesting meeting. Busy agenda, busy work schedule lately, and such a great staff to work with. It's just been a pleasure. My 3 months here. A lot of important work going on. I'll give you some updates, and as I began last month or the month before, the updates are italicized just for clarification, because I think it does lend great value to have the historic representation of where these projects started and how they progressed and where we are presently. So the update for the water rights section is Neil Acela and myself traveled to Sacramento on the 15th to discuss the water rights activity and requirements with Wagner and I'll mess this name up, Bonsior and De Novo. Wagner and Bonsior, that is Paula Whalen is their principal there, and Ms. Whalen did a great job in briefing me in particular on what water rights are and how the water rights laws in California apply to PID. I've had some history when I worked in Colorado on water rights, but they have a whole different setup in Colorado. They actually have a whole court system. It's kind of unique that arbitrates and makes decisions based on claims on water rights. In California, it's set up much differently, and I'll forget the acronym, but the Water Board, Water Conservation. There's a long acronym. They are the regulator, and they have I think an 8-member board, and they actually decide if there's any differences of opinion, and they also issue the permits and the licenses for the water rights. PID has some very old water rights and some other water rights that are less old, that our earliest date back to 1916 for storage rights. And that's the, I think, 271, excuse me, that we're attempting to license. So that what they do is they issue a permit initially, and then over time they give you a deadline to determine how much water use you'll actually have out of that right. And then you have to have a hard stop and license it at some point, is the short of it. So we've only had, a little over 100 years to figure out how much water we're using out of that. So we're ready to get that to license, and we're in the process of doing so. There were some pauses in the process. Our permit for that particular water right expired in 2007, but we did what we were supposed to do, our due diligence, and responded in application to the board to try to reestablish those rights. There was a lot of back and forth. There's a CEQA regulations, environmental reports that have to be established. And so there was work done on those that began in 2008 and continued through 13, 14, and stalled in part because of the Oroville situation and a lot of the attention shifting to those folks and their issues. And then, of course, with the interim manager situation. And so happy to say that we are beginning the process again that had been stalled for various reasons. And in particular, the board, I would like to ask the board to consider a work session, and we can discuss dates, but hopefully before the end of the year, to discuss in particular the sphere of influence and the place of use boundaries on our system maps. And that's where the conversation basically begins. There are maps drafted with those lines delineated now. We need to revisit it as a board and management to reestablish what our priorities are and where those boundaries should lie, and perhaps redraw some in light of some recent events and some possible opportunities for sales in the area. As the state pushes down on the water districts, PID in particular, with water conservation laws that are mandates, I would argue unfunded mandates, but that's another discussion. Our revenues go down, and simple math says that when you use less water, the unit cost of that water go up. Our fixed costs remain the same or go up. So we are trying to think out of the box and look at revenue possibilities that perhaps were not considered in the past, and expense reductions that perhaps weren't considered in the past. Solar, for instance, as an expense reduction. But in regards to water rights, I would ask that the board consider some dates, some tentative dates between now and the end of the year to have a work session to begin that process. Once we establish or reestablish those maps and the delineations, then we can throw work back to De Novo, who are our environmental consultants in this process, and they would restart and revisit the biological and other environmental studies that are required to complete the EIR in compliance with the CEQA process. So it'll be a lengthy process. We've already spent many years involved in the process. The money has not been wasted, but there are going to be some studies that are going to have to be revisited and updated, the biological surveys in particular, the aquatic life studies. So we can pick this back up and move forward, and it was time well spent, and certainly a learning opportunity for myself. The next item would be the North Lake Boat Launch land acquisition, and this was discussed at the Lake Committee on October 9th. Also, the Magalia Trail was on the agenda that the resident spoke to earlier in opposition. I asked that the committee pause the recreation project discussions for the time being in lieu of strategic planning that I'd like to begin soon. That's an agenda item. We'll discuss it further in the agenda. No update on the processed water recycle project. On the BRES design project, that's agendized tonight too for the completion of the CEQA public comment, and we'll discuss that more in depth when we get to that agenda item. The public comment period has closed, and we'll be asking the board to approve the final report that we will submit to the Water Quality Board tonight. Let's see here. We on the property acquisition piece associated with the B Reservoir project, the pathway of the 16-inch water main that we propose to build down the new Skyway from the water plant that directly connects to the A tank. We have made some significant progress recently. I know that I feel like I say that and then I withdraw it and then I say it again because that's exactly how it's progressed. And then 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But we did meet with Butte County Public Works. Let's see, on 10/4/18, and we discussed a possible encroachment permit application, which they were more than happy to encourage us to apply for that encroachment permit. After some long discussion about the documents that we've unearthed, discovered, Neil Acela in particular and our consultant Blackwater have done a good job digging up old documents that showed change of easement, right-of-way documentation from the original broker that started the procurement process back at the turn of the 20th century, and then several transitions from one railroad company to another, and also some precedents that Butte County Public Works has done in the city of Chico on that same old pathway of the railroad, and also the town of Paradise with the shared use path. So we've been gathering a lot of data and spending a lot of effort, mostly in-house, but we feel that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And we feel like we'll get some closure on this soon, hopefully, and I'll keep the board updated on that. On the spillway investigation, the only update I have, and it's within the engineering group's report as well, is that the Paradise Lake Sunny Day inundation study is complete, and PID staff has done their reviews and submitted comments back to the board on that. On the AMR project, at our last regular meeting, this board approved the outstanding cost to get to completion the equipment purchase for the AMR meter program. And we met a couple of days ago with Jim Ladrini and the meter staff and our billing staff and discussed implementation plan to get that equipment installed between now and January. And tentatively January, our consultant, our contractor, Zenner, will be here to assist us, or us assist them really, in that conversion project. So we're moving along very well. We're probably 80-85% complete with the MIU changeouts and the other appurtenances to that project. So it's moving along very well. I keep a miscellaneous category because there's so many different things that we do from day to day, week to week. So I'll try not to bore you with all the detail, but some of the highlights. I met with Lauren, the Paradise Town Manager, October 3rd after I also attended the Butte County Fire Safe Council meeting that same morning. And we had some good discussion around the county community choice aggregation. That's the power wheeling opportunity that the area has. There's been some recent movement in that. I need to revisit and update myself on some negatives in the cost savings you might have read in the newspaper, but we're continuing to monitor that and possibly join forces with the town and Oroville, who are the folks who have not joined the project at this point. So far, Chico and Butte County are the sole participants in that tentative project. Lauren also discussed with me the town sewer project, potential project, and I got the study. She shared the study with me that's been done, and so I'm beginning to read through that and see if there's any opportunities to partner. Speaking of Ward's earlier comments about partnering, we're constantly trying to partner at PID, certainly with the town. And so that's, I can't tell you how likely a partnership that might be, but we're reviewing it. The Almond Street project is moving forward, and that's also referenced in Neil's engineering report. That'll be our next big project. The plans are, I think, completed now and sent back to the engineer that we're sharing with the town on that project for the water utility relocates. We also discussed some solar opportunities. We've been in conversations with a couple of solar vendors, one that presents a product that actually floats as a potential project that we might float solar on Magalia Reservoir on the water. Just conversation level at this point. And then another more conventional oriented on the ground solar installation to try to potentially net meter some of our electric demand off of our primary load, which is located at the water plant, as you might imagine. Let's see here. I attended the Lake Committee meeting. That was a very good meeting. At that, and I don't want to steal thunder, but Dan with the Paradise Recreation and Parks Department came and again offered opportunities for partnership, and that was a great back and forth. Let's see. We continued negotiating meetings with IBEW and Teamsters, and tonight on the agenda is an IBEW, hopefully a closure on that agreement. We're working with CAL FIRE to develop vegetation removal activity and possible grant opportunities. We're also met with Sierra Pacific Industries and Capra about the potential fuel removal around the Paradise Lake using goat labor. And today I attended CAL FIRE grant training, an opportunity in Reading to see if we can't find some money to fund these activities. There is money out there. Let's see. Covered that. That's pretty much it for my report this evening. And like I said, there's several agenda items that we'll discuss as we move through the agenda. Happy to entertain any questions if there's any questions.
No questions? Public?
Yes, thank you. And I do personally want to thank Mr. Fortner. His involvement in the public participation areas of what's going on in our community is significantly different than we've had in the past. And frankly, I think for the kind of agency that this is and other things going on in our community, it's important to have this level management participate in other areas of our community. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
I'd like to second the comments there. I enjoyed seeing all the work that you're going through and reporting to us. I think that's really good.
I'm having fun. It's what I love.
Keep having fun is all I can say.
Keep up the good work. I just had a question about, is the inundation study available to...
It's in draft form at this point, but it should be final draft. Let me check with Neil on that, Mark. Happy to share that with you folks.
Might be some interest here.
Yeah, that's a required submittal in relation to the spillway and dam inspection regulations that came from the Oroville incident. These are sunny day events, which of course are less impactful than major rain event inundation studies, but and we actually entertained with our consultant both scenarios on the Paradise Lake, a sunny day, even though it wasn't required. This is for in-house use, if you will. What a maximum probable precipitation event would look like in an inundation situation as well. It's all important information for the district to know.
How often do dams break on sunny days? Probably never. It's always raining.
Never.
We just had our dams inspected yesterday, and they all passed muster. I mean, Magalia has its problems, of course, but no major findings based on the interaction. Anyway.
Good. Couldn't we just send that report to our illustrious governor and tell him we passed, we're done, yay? No such luck.
You talked about meeting with the city on the town sewer project. When you guys meet, is there any discussion about looking down the road about having, PG&E, PID, the city, cable TV, putting everything in one ditch, and eventually burying all this stuff?
Yeah,
That would share the cost, I would think.
absolutely. Give you an example, the Almond Street project, that is a town project that PID is partnering with the town. PG&E and the communication folks are all involved with that, and they are in fact undergrounding the electric utility there, all the utilities there. That's an unusual thing, honestly, and it's a much more expensive endeavor. Having managed an electric utility, I have a pretty good idea what it costs to bury cable, and it's expensive, very expensive, compared to overhead traditional utility poles. That being said, yes, those are the opportunities that you need to look for. That's the other reason I'm trying to meet with Lauren often, and trying to coordinate through Butte County also showed us an opportunity on some regional meetings for utility partnerships, and so we understand who's doing what, where, and when and why, so we can jump in there and join forces and not duplicate efforts. So we're really making a push on that front. As far as undergrounding, though, that's case by case, and it's certainly much more expensive.
Well, I'm thinking more someday when we decide to have sewer for this town.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
And I'm thinking it's going to cut down on the fire hazard if you bury the PG&E lines with all the trees we have up here.
Mm-hmm.
No, I would agree with you there, and it's certainly a component of that project to be considered. Not to go too far in the weeds, but they're looking at only sewering the commercial properties. Although if you look at the footprint of where they're suggesting sewer mains be placed, covers a vast amount of our major arteries. So I'm just beginning to look at it. I don't really have an opinion at this point, other than it's going to be super expensive.
That's the reason it probably won't happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It won't happen. And even if it does, the town council and the strong majority of people in town do not agree with the direction of going to Chico. The strong majority said, keep it in town.
Sure. I would suggest that if we entertained it, if it came to fruition, that we would want to develop treatment here, not wheel it to Chico. Quick follow-up, and Kevin just reminded me something very obvious, that water and wastewater cannot share the same ditch, or at least they have to be offset by certain vertical and horizontal distances. Yeah. So when you say sharing a ditch, there are limitations to what you can share in a ditch.
But good thought.
Good point.
Any other questions?
Okay, next.
All right, thank you. Number 7, Treasurer's memo.
Okay, yeah, my written memo. It's been a busy month with bringing Aaron on board. So there's been a lot of training. We've had a lot of turnover in the office. Ed kind of his report hit on a few of them, but we've promoted our utility billing technician to the water quality technician. We promoted one of our customer service reps to the utility billing tech, and then we brought Aaron on board to be the new office manager. So there's been quite a bit of turnover and some new faces and new areas of the district, which is a good thing, but it does take some time and effort to bring them all up to speed. So cash flow wise, we're doing pretty well. 3.2 mil, about 3.3 mil, and we have about 2.375 unrestricted. You'll see that the restricted portion went down. It was because the transfer of the refinance finally was all squared away through the trustee, and so we had $500,000, if you remember, that was set aside for payment of a bond once the bond came due. Well, that went to that trustee and paid down that bond, so that money's now is out of our pockets in the trustee's pocket, so we don't have to account for that anymore. Debt service, we're right on track, about 50% paid for the year. And for services wise, operational issues, we're right on line with budget. Consumption revenue, we're actually a little over budget, so we're doing pretty well on that from our projections. And other than that, there's not much else to report. There's the consumption revenue. You can kind of see where, if we're going to miss in these first 3 months, and we actually hit. So those are good numbers right there. October, I don't see anything different based on weather conditions, and then we'll start seeing a drop off in November, December, January, February through the end of the year. This is fiscal year 2. I'll make sure that's a little more clear next time, but it's fiscal year consumption historical revenue. You can see we were pretty flat for quite a few years and even dipping back down, and now we're starting to see that climb up, which is a big shot in the arm for the district.
No questions? Public?
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I see the difference between 2017 and 2018 consumption.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 33-point-something% increase, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, 33. Yeah, right?
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Quit complaining about how much water we use, will you?
I'm not.
I will never complain about how much water they use.
Not
Yeah,
even me
it's great
complain.
when consumption is up and leaks are down.
Very good.
Okay, no further questions. We'll take action, please. Somebody.
I move we accept the treasurer's memo.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Number 8, approval of checks. I do have one question on page 57. Uniforms, just real fast, how does it work exactly? All of the uniforms, what are they, delivered here, and then that's the reason they're lockers and so on? They come in their private clothes, change into uniforms, drop them off, etc.
Yeah, and then they're laundered.
Yeah.
And then it's AMark as our service provider.
Yes. I just wasn't sure.
Yep.
How that
We have
works.
2 locations here, and then the treatment plant.
Yeah.
Page 52, Ace Hardware. It seems like that's an unusually large bill, 8,000.
Oh, that was for the locks.
I'll get into the detail. Hold on.
I think it was for the locks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I would
probably
think,
right, the
yeah.
locks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Locks.
7,000.
Yeah.
400 locks for 6,700.
67,000.
Yeah.
Gold plated.
Ace's place.
Yeah. That's the majority of the bill. We're normally a little higher at this time of year too because we are in the construction season, so
Sure.
there's quite a few little runs over there that we're constantly getting supplies and parts and stuff like that.
I got a question on page 63. The false alarm, about a third of the way up.
Yeah.
How does that work? I'm not involved in town council anymore, but it used to be that there was no fee for the first 2 and then a fee for the third and the fee increased and so on. So why is there a fee? Has this happened multiple times? Or
It's happened in our history multiple times. We do have, this one's a funky one because we have, it's where when we do get an alarm and our alarm company does call, that they go through a chain of calls before they actually call the police.
Good. I was hoping so.
But this one was an alarm that sounded the alarm but didn't trigger the alarm company. So it was a neighbor called in based on the noise of it, and then the police showed up, and that's why we got the false call.
Yeah, I was curious because I've never seen that before. And generally there is a chain process like that.
This one slipped through the chain somehow because it was, I forget where, it was in the server room or somewhere where they didn't have
It was a sensor or something, I
something,
think.
and then but it sounded the noise, and the neighbor called in the noise.
Yeah. Well, let's make the neighbor pay for it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Can we, is that billable? Or?
Yeah.
I'd actually appreciate it if it was somebody in
Correct.
here.
Yeah, no, not complaining, just curious.
I got a question on page 58.
Can we call them VIPs next time?
That's a good idea. You know, I'm on that chain that's supposed to be called on a couple of other things, but not on here.
All right, excuse me. Page 58. Are we paying in advance for that NOD, that notice of determination? Did we already? Looks like we already paid them.
Who's the?
We haven't paid them. I have to check. It's just ready.
Okay. I thought, well, geez, we're paying them in advance here, so.
Well, the work's been completed. The report is done, but are you talking about the notice of determination
Right.
for the BRES
Staff had
project?
requested a check, probably, in advance, so it'll be ready.
Oh, I see. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, because we haven't
But it hasn't.
published it yet, right?
Right, it's-
So that's what I was asking. Okay. So, great, thank you.
I'm not sure whether, I'm not sure. I thought it would be stand.
Are there any other questions? Anybody from the public have any questions? Okay, number 8, action, please, somebody.
I can do it if you want.
I move for the approval of general fund check numbers 52350 through 52458 for the month of September 2018, totaling $601,673.48, and the authorization of a similar amount, allowing or adjusting for extraordinary budget or board-approved items during the month of October.
A second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I forgot to ask, I'm sorry. Apparently nobody out there jumping up and down. Number 9, legal report for number 8.
No legal report.
Thank you, Emily. Number 10A, unfinished business.
Yes, so this is a continuation from the last board meeting related to PID policy and procedures manual update, specifically the private distribution pipelines. Neil Esela gave a great presentation on this at the last meeting, and I told him I would carry the water, if you will, for it tonight. We made a couple of minor edits in this language, partly in part to respond to Bob's concerns related to who's going to pay for the activity. The answer is us. But understand that, us being PID, understand that what we're doing is just acknowledging what we've always done as the district. And if we have a line that's leaking, we're not going to stand there and have a debate with a property owner. It's a main. It's before the meter, as we discussed earlier, the main versus the service lines. And so we're going to repair those lines. We don't want our water to leak, and that's not good business. So that's what we've done historically. If it's leaking, we would fix it, and then we would discuss who owns it and try to figure that part of it out. This just streamlines that procedure for if the homeowner wants to, in fact, dedicate that private property, if you will, that pipeline that's owned by a private entity to the district. This streamlines the process much more so than the old language was very ambiguous and difficult to maneuver through. So we've cleaned up that language. We've clarified to Bob's point that yes, PID would in fact be paying for that repair, but it also gives a clear opportunity for the owner to dedicate that infrastructure to PID. We're not trying to shake trees here and sound alarms. We don't want a line forming at the front door of folks who are trying to donate this stuff. We will take them one at a time as they come due. The gentleman that's in the audience tonight that spoke to his particular situation is the only situation that we're aware of presently that anyone's really concerned about, that we want to get that clarification, and I hopefully this language clears up those concerns. So what we'll do going forward, if this is approved, is we will just take these case by case. We already did a quick ranking of the project of these lines and what we may want to be proactive about. Most of them we don't intend to be very proactive. We'll just take them as they come. But we would have a streamlined process in place to, in fact, accept the lines, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Any board members have any changes or questions? It looks pretty clear and straightforward. Comments from the public?
Yes, thank you. My only concern here is when we're communicating to the meter holder how we say what the document contains without using words like assumption of liability, which is scary to the property owner. There has to be a way for PID's representative to speak in the customer's language without using legal terms, which technically we have, so that they're not scared for what we want them to agree to.
I'm smiling a little bit, Ward, only because my wife's a lawyer, and I pretend to be an engineer. I'm not one, but no, she's not. But when you combine lawyers and engineers, this is the language you end up with. Is my point, and that's how regulations and utility policies are written. I understand your concern, but we would certainly speak in more commonly used language when we spoke with the public.
Just like you said, it's just like you said earlier about PID. They're nice. People like them, so they say nice things.
Thank you, Ward.
Dan?
Oh, Bob, yes, please. Hopefully this satisfies you.
Bob Grimm, PID customer. I adhere to the 3 B's of public speaking: be sincere, be brief, and be seated. I encourage you to, as the board of directors, to adopt and approve these proposals. I think that nobody in 102 years made a mistake. This is just how it's been.
Yep.
Utility infrastructure over decades and decades and a century. It's just evolved to this. So I encourage you, and quite frankly, urge you to approve this agenda item and the change to the District Policy and Procedures Manual. And since I have the floor, just one quick shout out. I would like to acknowledge staff. They have been positive and professional. And this is regardless of how you folks vote on this. I want to give a big thank you to the staff for their professionalism and the positive treatment that they have afforded. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
And I'd like to specifically mention Keith O'Brien and Jim Ladrini, because they're the two who actually interacted with you.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you.
Once in a while, I actually do this.
Thank you, Bill. We appreciate
Accept
it.
the proposed revisions to the District Policy and Procedures Manual, Section 6.7 and 6.8, or provide direction to staff for alternative changes as determined.
And we have no alternative changes, so we...
No, we don't.
Second.
Oh, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. 11A.
You, Bob.
11A.
So this is a lengthy portion of your packet.
Yeah, you think?
So if you read through all this, God bless you. I did. Ann did. Can we have a showing of hands? There's 2 of us that did.
I scanned it.
And I'm geeky enough to find it
We
interesting.
got it 2 days ago, you know.
Well, so let me summarize. I'm sure that's a relief to summarize, right? So what this represents is the culmination of the CEQA process related to the B Reservoir project. So here in the great state of California, we have some very in-depth regulatory requirements for environmental review for any project. God bless. That's a great thing. Truly it is. This is the report that's reflective of that work. And it covers everything from, it's comprehensive. Let me just put it that way. It's very comprehensive. This is the culmination of it, and this is, in the technical jargon, it's the initial study mitigated negative declaration. And what that means in layman's terms is that the environmental issues have been studied. There has been a 30-day public comment period that's been held that is now completed. And the study is now published, and any comments or responses to those public comments are now documented. They were all considered, for lack of a better term, minor and easily mitigated within the normal scope of the project. So in other words, any permits or necessary mitigation related to any comments about the project will be handled in the process of the contractor establishing contracts and acquiring permits, et cetera, to begin the project. So let's see here. With a little bit of the specifics, it went through a clearinghouse process. It is, as I said, everything that's necessary will be incorporated in the construction contract. PID has responsibilities to make sure that all aspects of the environmental study are respected and included and monitored throughout the project and then reported after the fact. There's a reporting requirement for a period of time after the completion of the project. The let's see here.
We read it.
There's a monitoring plan also that has to be respected.
Mitigation monitoring reporting.
I guess that's enough detail. So the I'm trying to respect the process. I spent a lot of time reading it.
Yeah,
I
so
should
did I.
at least
So
give
did
some
I.
kind of a summary.
So did I, and that was enough. I don't even
Okay, so the resolution before you is also lengthy, and I didn't write it. There's a lot of whereases, and I legally, do we have to read it every word? Because I will if we have to.
I can.
No, we just
just
adopt
have
the
this-
resolution.
I can
We just have
synopsize
this
it.
paragraph here.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need to.
Great. So we're asking the board tonight to adopt this resolution,
21812.
21812.
2018-12.
2018-12, and it is in fact adopting the CEQA IS MND for the Zone A pump station and the entirety of the project, and adopt the mitigation monitoring report program, and which will also direct staff to file that notice of determination with Butte County Clerk's Office and the State Revolving Fund Financial Assistance Program within 5 days.
Okay, I moved as just has been read.
I have some questions.
But yes, we can do that. We can discuss it. I just don't want to have to read it again.
Okay. So, let's see.
Okay, can we have a second?
I'll second, sure.
Okay, thank you. Now you can discuss.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. One is just, I found something in here I wasn't aware of. This is just page 88. And since you spoke with the town of Paradise most recently, or maybe does anyone know the answer? I wasn't aware that this is under comment C4.
That should be volatile.
Complying with the town of Paradise post-construction standards and its Phase 2 municipal stormwater permit. So do we have it? I didn't realize we had any stormwater.
No.
Every municipality had to go through the federal
We don't have sewers.
stormwater permitting or process. And
Okay.
being a smaller town, they're probably in phase 2.
I would think they're in phase 2 of
Yeah.
what's referred to as the MS4,
MS4.
process.
Right.
As I understand it, there is in fact some stormwater piping, retainage, detention.
There are.
movement in
Every
town.
little project that's developed has to comply.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And-
that's the reason for detention ponds
Absolutely.
and so on. Yeah.
And so there are requirements. If you disturb X amount of area, you have to comply with certain regulations with sedimentation control, water storage and conveyance. And the town does in fact have requirements.
And that's part of the water quality board approvals and everything.
Yes.
It's pretty massive.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other question was on page 92. It just concerned the asbestos and the serpentine rock.
Right.
So do we think there were going to be serpentine rock at this site? No?
Are you new to this area, Ann?
We crossed.
I don't mean that facetiously.
I am new because I've only been here 12 years.
As am I. Well, I'm much newer.
That makes me new.
And it's amazing how much of that serpentine rock is
Well,
around.
I know you can even see it driving on the way to Magalia, but I mean, in this particular site.
We will cross it right when we go in the Koodlink area there.
Right.
We cross it at Koodlink,
Yeah.
and
I'm
once
talking
we
about at the site B reservoir.
Yeah, the B res, it's
Well, it's part of the
already
whole.
disturbed.
Yeah, you're talking about, certainly when we go down the Skyway,
Right, correct.
we'll have
And
it.
as Kevin said, I don't think we don't expect to encounter much of it on the B-res site.
No.
But some of that is unknown because we don't know what's actually under the reservoir.
Right.
So, but we don't expect it.
There's not going to be a ton of excavation in that reservoir anyway, because all it is
Because it's already-
we're already putting in the same elevation as the current.
Okay. And then I just wondered about, did we budget anything in the project for that?
Yeah, there's some budgeted amounts, and there's mitigation that's
mitigation.
described in
Okay.
the CEQA process. It's basically wetting. That stuff is fibrous, and that's if you breathe it. It's as
Right.
you know,
Right.
is the real health concern, not ingesting it in water or anything. Even though there are asbestos limits in drinking water.
because that's how it's controlled always. Is we always just whenever we've encountered it, you have to have somebody with a garden hose standing there.
Definitely want to wet that.
Okay, that was all I had.
I can tell you where the serpentine
Yeah.
is. I've walked it because of the previous project. On the page 111, they've got Lassen National Forest. Lassen National Forest actually covers some of the serpentine.
Yep.
We own a little bit of it, but as the boundary goes down to the water treatment plant, on the left-hand side, there's serpentine, and it goes across the highway. And about 15 to 20 feet into the property, it could possibly be, the way this map indicates it, you'd hit serpentine along there, and then at the corner there of the Lassen National Forest property, there's serpentine there. So this map is rather small, but at any rate, that's where the serpentine is along the way.
I agree with you, Bill. Having been out there yesterday when they were doing the dam inspection, it's clearly visible
Yes,
down there.
and some of it's right, and then there's volcanic rock with it and some other stuff. So that's where you're going to have to look for the serpentine.
Thank you.
But we are aware, and there are mitigation procedures in place.
Yeah, but it's very expensive to mediate for it, work through it. We went through that on the last project.
I was kind of curious, how many trees do you think we're going to cut down? I was kind of surprised at that comment. But
there are several, enough to have raised a comment from CAL FIRE to pull a permit, but we were a little surprised.
That's why I was surprised.
Comment. It's pretty routine level of a permit, but not a lot of trees, no.
Yeah, that's what
but some.
Okay.
No further questions? Any questions from public? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. A roll call vote, please.
Director Sola?
Aye.
Director Rice?
Aye.
Director Prasad?
Aye.
Director Kettle?
Yes.
President Whitler?
Aye. Okay, Bill, would you want to take a 3 or 4 minute break or anything, or you?
Good.
Well,
Keep
that
chugging?
I took my 3 or 4 minute break about 20 minutes
Okay,
ago.
all right.
I wouldn't mind a break.
You're sneaky down there, Bill.
My eyes aren't yellow anymore.
Yeah. All right, 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, 11B, Mr. Manager.
Sorry, I lost my place.
It's the $7,000 for the title.
Yes, sir. So we have attempted for some time to get a local title company to actually work with us to research the titles and hopefully insure those titles for the 5 parcels that are directly related to the B Reservoir project.
Okay.
Somehow or another, our consultant, Blackwater, Larry with Blackwater, actually got Bidwell Title Company to agree to do that activity. They're asking $7,000 for the process. Reasonable enough cost, but slightly beyond my spending limit. So I wanted to ask the board for approval to, it's a very important part of the project, to approve that expenditure.
Sure.
We have no choice, so
Yeah, sounds good.
I move we approve.
I'll second.
Any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I didn't see you hopping up and down out there, Ward, so. 11C, Mr. Manager.
Yes, Public Health Goal Report. This is a requirement unique to California that lays out...
We have a lot of unique things here, don't we?
Part of why I moved here. It keeps you busy. So these are potential health contaminants that have been detected in our water, well below regulatory limits. I want to be clear about that.
Non-enforceable.
And not enforceable. Nonetheless, there are quick explanation. So EPA regulations take into consideration health effects, of course, for any potential contamination, but they also consider cost and impacts of cost to implement best available technologies to resolve those contaminants. Public health goals do not consider cost; they only consider the health effects. And some of the limits, some of the goals, if you will, for elimination of that contamination are generally zeros or the lowest detection limit of a piece of analytical equipment. All that being said, it's a regulatory requirement to publish this type of a report every 3 years. This will be PID's first report of this type, to my understanding, to get published. But we're asking the board to approve this report and the, let's see, where's the resolution?
Page 186. The motion, I'm sorry.
Yes, there's the motion, and it's to publish, I think there's a 30-day comment period, is that correct, for the publication?
I think you accepted and then you presented at a meeting.
Subsequent meeting.
'Cause I did that.
But we were going to schedule that meeting concurrent with the board meeting, so we weren't going to call a special meeting,
Right.
but envelop it into the
Right.
board meeting.
We did at our city council
For
meetings.
the
in
November
Blair.
19th meeting, which is getting ahead of the agenda. But that's the general gist of the request here, is that the board approve this resolution for this 30-day period based on this very detailed report that Jim Passanisi put together, very well written and very well described. So that's the ask of the board tonight. I'm happy to expand on that explanation if you need it.
Okay, so I have a few things to say. I used to do this too. I used to write these and present them to the city council. And the whole goal, if you look on page 190, is to prepare a brief written report in plain language. And it's difficult because,
Good luck on that one, huh?
because it does talk about, but we do our best as we do in the CCRs, to explain what a PHG is, what a MCLG is, what detection limits are, what best available treatment is. So I'm kind of, I see he used some language from California Department of Health and the DDW and all that, and he used from the code, but I'm wondering if we could make this a little briefer, more concise, and especially on page 191, where I don't even see some detection limits, no units for these. For example, hexavalent chromium says 0.02. 0.02 what?
I'm saying that as well. Bromodichloromethane.
Okay, so PP. Oh, it does say at the top PPB. Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm used to seeing it in a. I'm just used to seeing it in a
tabular form.
Yeah, and something that could maybe have something that I'm going to pass this down to you.
More along the lines of a CCRN.
Yeah, that has something where it shows the public, gives the public clear information of what the MCL is as opposed to a PHG, because they're vastly different.
Vastly, you're correct.
And I think that's what we as a water district need to educate the public on. That sometimes these are unattainable. Zero is unattainable, or sometimes they're regulated beyond the detection limit. And I think that would. And then also when I looked these up I didn't see any detection of hexavalent chromium in 2015. I did see that 3.4 in 2014, but I only saw the 2.5. So I don't know. I just thought there might be a better approach to be more clear, concise, and then it's.
Why don't you work
Again on page 194, I didn't see any units either. Maybe there were PPB was up. No, I didn't see any units.
Right.
And again, that same thing. There might be a more concise way of presenting, the constituent, the level, the health risk. So it's in a nice, clear, and then the BATs and what action you want to take. And then instead of these appendices, maybe one sheet that just has reference. Because this, unless you work in a laboratory or you're in water treatment, or you're just a geek, I don't think these are all going to make. I don't think they're going to make a lot of sense to most people. So we want to make it in language where our customers can understand what we're talking about.
I hear your point clearly, and you make a great point. I guess I want to give credit where credit's due. The detail and the length of this is exhaustive and well done.
Yeah,
but I
and
couldn't agree with you more that it needs to be more brief.
But I don't know if it does what we want it to do.
Yes. Why don't we? I assume then you're suggesting we table this for some revisions,
Please.
and I'm happy to either I'll put a draft together working with Jim, and I'll get that out to you, and we'll coordinate if that's
Sounds
okay.
good.
Yeah, if it coordinate
Anyone
right.
else that wants to be involved in it, of
Yeah.
course.
Maybe you.
I would just
Yeah,
love.
This guy too.
These two? Okay.
This guy.
I don't want to be involved at all.
I would just love to be involved.
We would.
No,
We
I
would.
just have a high school comment. You know, you have these reports that are due, and the students go out and photocopy all the information and put it together in a report, and it's called the staircase method. The heavier the report, the farther it goes up the staircase, and at least, you know, you got the idea.
Yes, sir.
Well, if you went out into Paradise and got a show of hands as to how many people really are interested in this, you'd get 0 hands raised, except for maybe Ann and Mark.
But they could have interest if it's written in
if
a
it's-
clear, concise way that they can understand.
Absolutely.
Well, we do have to meet the state requirements.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh, yeah.
bottom
That's
line.
the other
And that's
thing.
our
yes,
goal,
yes.
is to educate our public, so if we're,
We'll try to
But it
bridge
could
that
be
gap and
like-
accomplish
Yeah.
both goals.
Yeah.
An
Yes.
easier read.
it's doable, because I've done it.
Yes, good. We will fix
Well,
that.
when it comes back, though, it doesn't need to be the whole thing, just the synopsis or the final
Well, I'd like to see
conclusion
the
Right, the final.
draft,
Fine.
right.
It can be
First
probably
approve.
boiled down to about 4 pages, I
Yeah.
would imagine.
Or we can even work on it and then give them the, just
For the
like we did.
record, I always remind staff that I love executive summaries and bullet points. But Jim is this is the way he works. And man, it is detailed and
Very
it is to
thorough.
the point
Very
and
Yes,
thorough.
very
But
thorough.
yeah,
Actually, I've got another better suggestion. We can vote and accept this, but then why don't we come up with something that would be for the public's view? Because
I'd rather
because it
table
won't change the
I wouldn't
report.
vote to accept this.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. It won't change the report. It just means it's easier
there were
to
some
read.
errors in there as well, Dan, that probably need to be cleaned up. But
Okay.
there's no imminent deadline.
That's what I was going to
Yeah,
ask.
yeah.
We can. I think we have
Okay.
time to work on this and revise it. If
We probably want to wait to accept it because then we have to notice that.
Right.
Yeah, there's going to be at the
Re-notice
next meeting.
This
once
was
we
to
do.
notice that 30-day period, so we will revise and then restart that 30-day period at a
And
And
future
usually the
meeting.
deadline, I may have changed since I've been out of water, but it was usually July. It was due in July. So the one for these 3 years would actually be due in July of 2019.
Honestly, this came
Or
to
we're
my
catching up.
attention through a concerned citizen, and I did not want. This is our response to it. This is PID's first attempt at this, so we will. We do want to establish it,
Okay.
but you're right. The deadline is actually July.
Okay.
We do have to.
And do you have a one that, like an example of one that you thought was done real well that you could email over that we could take a
Sure,
look at?
I'll do that.
Okay, I think that would give us a good template to maybe work
Yeah.
off of. Thanks.
Thank you, Ann.
Sure.
Okay, moving right along. D, 11D.
Yes.
Strategic business
So,
plan.
thank you, Board, for the attention to this important undertaking. As we discussed during my interviews, and I'm sure Kevin's as well, planning, business planning, strategic planning is of utmost importance to a water district, actually to any organization. Recently, there's been a lot of projects that were already underway when I came here, under consideration, for future consideration, and then new ones that have come forward since I've been here. And all of them have merits on their own. But I kind of felt like some of the projects were sort of coming at me in not a scattered way, but sort of a shotgun way that I felt like we were in more of a reactive mode than a proactive mode. Let me put it that way. And so it's of utmost importance that we as a water irrigation district establish our mission first, our core mission, and our core values that establish that mission. And that's what are we doing today. And I would argue we're doing a great job today. But what are we doing in the sense of our core values and our core competencies and our mission? And some of this sounds like business speak, and it is, but it's very important to what we do on a daily basis. Beyond establishing that mission statement, we need to establish a vision statement. The vision statement is what do we want to be in the future? What are our goals as a district? So to define those what we are and what we want to be, we establish goals. So we divide up our business plan, if you will, into segments: customer service, treatment, distribution, board activities, financial, and how do those goals align with our mission and vision? It's not that complex, but it's necessary work, and the time is now. This is me giving a speech. Obviously, I'm asking that the time be now of the board, that we establish some work sessions, schedule some work sessions, hopefully at least one before the end of the calendar year.
Okay.
And I would suggest that, and I know, Mark, you and I had some conversations about whether this should start in a committee. I would like the process to start with management, core management, myself and Kevin, perhaps Mickey, strictly as a facilitator, and the board. And not to exclude the public or staff, but I'm talking about the very beginnings of the conversation, and then weave in the public and staff into the process as well. But to define that core mission in particular, what are we, and the vision, what do we want to be? And a draft. It can always be edited, added, subtracted, amended. And then step 2, bring in, the public's always welcome to any of these meetings, of course, bring in staff. We need to bring in all the key stakeholders, and I'm talking about all our staff, certainly beginning with senior staff, but all the staff. And I've already put feelers out to multiple groups within the PID staff and to get their input into the process. And we're reviewing the work that had already been accomplished, I think as recently as 17, and then going back, I think back in 12, there was work done along these lines. But we need to establish the document, and then it becomes a living document. And so annually, at a minimum, you revisit that document. And are we still online with what our goals were that we established last year? Are we still within our mission and our vision? And it's super important work, and thank you for giving me 3 months to get my feet on the ground before we undertook this important work. But I do feel strongly that now is the time. And then we can decide as we look forward to projects and different projects come in, does it fit our core mission? And if it does, where within those goals? There's my speech. Bob?
For those of us who've been through this, do you think it would help if we'll just call it a workshop just to give it a name, and actually hire a professional facilitator?
We talked about that, and we're still looking into that, Bob. I've asked Mickey. If you don't know Mickey, Mickey is a super sharp young lady who is our community relations IT person. The young lady that comes in and sets up the cameras, she's got many more skills than that. She has an MBA. And I've also, within my MBA studies, taken strategic management. So I feel like we have skilled staff in-house. That's not to say that we won't look outside, and we are. We're exploring that. But you have to balance the process, understanding the process and going through it objectively, but also not giving up control. That's maybe a bad way to put that. But I want to maintain focus. And sometimes, and I've seen this firsthand, back in Berea, we had the Kentucky League of Cities come in and facilitate strategic planning. They never included staff. And it was really just an exercise to appease the council, city council, and it was so scattered, it was just not focused.
I'm not proposing that you lose control. I'm just a facilitator. To me is a person who used to hire to just
if it's a good facilitator, I guess is my point.
Keep it on track, whatever track you're looking for, and kind of who doesn't have any opinion about what's going on.
Right.
Who just knows how to get
that was my first thought, and we are exploring that, and let me dig into that a little bit deeper as we move to the beginning of this process, and certainly something I thought about.
Yeah, I'd be all in favor of just an 8-hour, one day, or see how far we get.
Yeah, I thought even possibly, for work sessions, we can handle it however you guys want to. We could do a few hours before our regularly scheduled board meeting if you want to just carve out a day. I know some of you. I know Dan still pretends to be retired, but I know you're still very busy.
Poor job of it.
But however you guys want to schedule it, I'm happy to work around it myself.
I like the idea.
Yeah, and we have the old
Great.
strategic business plan, too.
Yes,
So,
and I've been reviewing
yeah,
that.
yeah, so we can
And,
take the good from that.
Kevin's dug up some of our industry peers and their missions and vision statements, for instance, and we're digging through those. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And,
Oh, yeah,
and,
they're fun. That's why I say when you get into these things, 2 hours
Yeah.
goes by in
Oh,
about
yeah.
10 minutes.
Yeah, you can fill up a flip chart
Yes.
sheet in a short time. Go to the next. So I'm looking forward to it, and we'll thank you for the support. And I guess if any action, I would just ask that you guys consider dates for a work session, an initial work session. I'm thinking maybe sometime in November, if not between Thanksgiving and Christmas, sometime if we can find a day that everybody's free.
I like that latter.
That's good.
Thank you.
Let's hope it rains.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
it'll be a minimum of 4 hours at least.
Probably, at least the initial one, huh?
Yeah, I would think so.
Or maybe-
Subsequent
maybe 8
ones.
hours.
It's
Okay,
a
that's fine.
brainstorming.
Yeah, subsequent
activity.
ones
Okay,
might
that's fine.
potentially
That's
get
fine.
stretched.
I
Okay.
appreciate that opportunity.
Okay, so are you going to kind of stay in touch with us then, if do I understand, in regards to setting some kind of time?
Yes. Yeah, we'll throw out some dates
Yeah.
and send out emails and get
Okay.
some feedback from you guys. Thank
Very
you.
good. Anybody from the public wish to speak to this?
What's the action?
Well, not, we're just giving consent
Action to the,
to proceed. We like it. Concurrence. How does that sound?
Direction to come up with
Concurrence
dates.
with the
direction to
concept.
the manager.
I don't,
It goes back on the agenda, Ward.
the key word there is may be taken.
Yep.
We gave him concurrence that we're just wishing to proceed.
On a lot of these items, Ward, I asked Georgianne to put in there action may be taken because, quite frankly, I'm not sure if we
Yeah.
will or will not. But if we don't have that in there, we can't take action.
Okay, E.
Yes, as we discussed at the special call meeting last month, there's some conflicts with Kevin and I being at a conference for that week after Thanksgiving, so we were hoping, and it sounded like folks were generally available to reschedule that meeting for November 19th at 6:30, and that's the request.
What day is that?
It is
It's
a
Monday.
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 Day.
Third Monday.
Fine with me.
Okay, sounds good.
And Monday Night Football.
Yeah, hey. We can get a TV screen up there for those that are interested. Okay. Would you like an action on that
Sure.
one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Board
I'll make a
for-
motion. I move to cancel the special meeting date previously set for November 28th, 2018, and set a new special meeting date of the Board of Directors on Monday, November 19th, 2018, at 6:30 p.m.
I'll second that motion.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. F.
Thank you, Board. As it turns out, the final item under number 11, because item G I asked be taken off. We had no disagreement, but some clerical misunderstanding on the Teamsters part. Not to jump ahead, so we're gonna remove that. We don't need ratification on the Teamsters offer tonight, but the IBEW Local 1245. We would like the board to consider ratification of the contract tonight for the general group here at PID. Let's see, on October 11th, we met last with the IBEW group and came to an agreed proposed agreement. Their rank and file has in fact voted and accepted these terms, so final ratification would fall back to the board, and we support that ratification and ask that the board move to ratify the proposed tentative agreement between PID and IBEW Local 1245 and update the terms of the agreement and the rules and regulations, the MOU, if you will, governing employee conditions, salaries, and benefits to PID effective July 1, 18 through June 30th, 19, 1-year deal.
So moved as read.
Okay, I'll second that.
Other questions or anything? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
Any opposed?
Thank you. That was a difficult negotiation, and we appreciate the support.
Do you want to speak to this now that it's done?
Well, sounds like you already said
How rude of me.
It took a lot of work to get here to this point.
I do foresee some closure on item G shortly. There was just a misunderstanding. We did an incorporation into the MOU. They wanted a term sheet, so we've now supplied them a term sheet. So that's why we've asked that to come off tonight, item G.
Okay, thank you. Number 12, committee reports. Paradise Lake and Recreation, Mark and Bill.
Take it away, Bill.
Well, if you haven't read it, I have, and I don't, I think it covers everything that's published in here, unless you have some questions of us, Mark and myself, or Ed, about what was talked about there.
Oh, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I'm getting a short suit, but that's...
Any questions?
I see Ann's reading it, so let's...
Just going over the highlights.
Yeah, I didn't make any notations on it, so.
Good meeting. We had a good.
Do you,
good
meeting.
public, yes?
The board will make up for us.
Excuse me for my proofreading, but public present, what is Mr. Efsef's first name?
Oh,
Dan?
Dan.
Yeah, how do you spell Dan?
Yeah, I did notice that, by the way, when I was reading
That's
it.
me. I typed this up, so that's my error. And
But
my proofreader.
I thought it was kind of cute. It's appropriate to the water
Right.
situation.
Call him one.
The spelling is,
Yeah.
did you see
It'll
it
be,
top?
it'll be corrected. I
The people
apologize.
present, he spelled his name D-A-M.
With that.
Oh, D-A-M instead of D-A-M? Oh, all the way up there. Well, it's spelled with just one.
Yeah, just take one leg of the M, damn off.
See, he's in charge of the minutes, so I get to pass on it.
Paragraph 2 is correct, D-A-N.
Okay, second one, Butte County Special Districts, Mark?
Oh, okay. Yeah, we had a meeting about a week and a half ago, and basically the gist of the meeting was that they're going to revise some of the rules for the operation of the association, the bylaws, and we voted in favor of the changes. I didn't write up anything on that for tonight, but and we're going to meet again in November, and then we actually will formally vote on those bylaw changes. So this was just a vote to proceed with the changes. So it's kind of a streamlining effect that they're doing, which is good. Bylaws get pretty detailed, and it looked all the changes that they made looked good to all the members that were present. So that's pretty much the gist of the meeting, was just going over that, and then scheduling the next meeting. So anyway,
Okay, thank you.
if you have any questions,
Who all attends these meetings?
let's see. We had South Feather was there. Of course, Chico Parks and Recreation District. Darn, I should have taken some notes. Brought my notes. I actually did take some notes, but I didn't bring them.
So it could be any special district, like even a cemetery district?
Well, the cemeteries
Yes,
are probably
correct.
right there.
I believe there's about, I'm thinking 15 districts that are involved. Is that right, Kevin? That's about right. I think so. Yeah.
Just curious.
Not all of them come to every meeting, of course. So the representation, we usually have maybe half of that number there at the meetings. The ones that I've gone, I've only gone to, 2 or 3 meetings now. So.
Used to go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next, director's comments. Bill, any comments?
A while back, I thought of something, but we kept going, so that sort of passed away.
Bob, any comments?
I like the meetings, but I do wish we had 2 breaks instead of 1.
I'm sorry.
Although this one's coming timely because we're going to go into closed session now. So that was my only comment. I hadn't seen my urologist for about 3 years, and I saw him recently, and I passed with everything, and I'm in good health, in spite of having to go to the bathroom more often. But,
Well, just throw something at me or.
TMI.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ward.
Yeah, thank you for that report on Facebook, Bill.
Thank you for that comprehensive
report. Bob, do you have any
Educating
comments?
our public.
Just something Ed said a little while ago. I've sat on both tables of salary negotiations, and it's a very frustrating. They drag on for months usually, and it's a tough balancing act. You're trying to give employees a good, reasonable raise to keep them here, and you're also trying to give the ratepayers the best bang for their buck, and it's tough. And I've been very impressed in my short time here how the staff and the board and the legal team, everybody kind of comes together and just kind of get to a happy medium on these things, because it's tough. We had one that dragged on for a year one time, and the meetings were sometimes 5 minutes long. People just get up and walk out. And one night, the two attorneys involved and me and another guy went to a bar, had a drink. We figured out on a napkin, and that's what was our final contract. I think we did it in 5 minutes. So these things are tough, and I'm very impressed about how this has all come together.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, I want to follow up on your comments, Bob. I want to thank the employees and management and IBEW and the Teamsters for coming to an agreement. I agree with you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. It wasn't too tough of a process. I think it was fairly smooth. So I really want to thank everybody. So if you're out there watching, thank you very much, employees. Appreciate it.
You know, the comments that were made just off the cuff were that both sides walked away a little unhappy, which is what they say is a good negotiation. So,
yeah, it's normal. Yeah.
And we did a good job. No comments.
The only comment I've got is in regards to the request from the Gold Nugget Museum for the PID thing. I've made 2 calls to the parties involved and haven't gotten a return call yet. So.
And Ann
but I'll
had made a comment, Dan,
continue to pursue.
also about, I don't know how you made that
like
to me.
promotional consideration.
I'm going to take that with me when we meet with him.
Like put a sign on the side of that building.
I got that. That was a great idea.
Donated. And I also saw one in Costco for like $1,700 that looked like it might be serviceable.
It's a big markup.
Blow it up.
No, it was a...
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Dan, just yell at me and we'll go visit those folks if you'd like.
And when they return the call, I'll be in touch with you.
Okay.
Closed session, I'll give you a chance in a second, but we will be going to closed session shortly after a comment from somebody from the public in regards to comments on labor negotiations and public employee discipline and public employee performance evaluations. But Ward, you had a question, comment, sir.
I did, and not to repeat 5 years worth of history, but because it's come up before, as much as many of us feel that we have a fine gentleman in Kevin, a great representative of this organization, the mistakes that used to be pointed out by Director Hunt have continued. We saw it in the draft of the budget, nearly 200 typos and mathematical errors. And frankly, what Hunt used to say was, why don't we have a junior treasurer making these mistakes instead of somebody like a Kevin? I just wanted to bring that up before you decide whether or not he's worth any more to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to this? Okay, we will go to closed session. Thank you.